What's up, everyone? In today's video, I'm going to break down this concept of no man's land using the recent British Open semi-final between Coll and Mostafa Asal. So here's what you can expect in this video. I'm going to tell you exactly what no man's land is. I'm sure you've heard the phrase before. Maybe you already know what it is, maybe you don't, but you're not going to have any confusion after this video. I'm going to help you feel good about yourself, because what you're going to see is that even the best players in the world, or some of the best players in the world, still occasionally drift back to what I like to call default hitting patterns, hitting low and hard and the ball's not really going anywhere. Then you're also going to understand the implications of hitting too low and too hard, and through awareness and through some reflection, you might recognize that that is your default pattern, especially when you're under pressure. Then we're going to talk about some of the implications and the correlation between height, pace, and final targets in the backcourt. And finally, the video wouldn't be complete unless we talk about how you can try and remedy the situation of hitting into no man's land. Okay, let's start with the basics. What is no man's land? So no man's land, think of it, if you were to visualize a squash court, and imagine you drew this band across the middle of the squash court, near the tee and around the service boxes. You draw this across the width of the squash court. Any ball that's taking its first or second bounce in that region is generally considered no man's land. And the reason that this is no man's land is because you don't want the ball to be going there, just the same way you wouldn't want to end up in no man's land. If the ball ends up taking its first or second bounce in that region across the width of the court near the service boxes, a few things happen. You give your opponent less time to actually hit the ball. Because it's been hit relatively short, your opponent doesn't have the luxury, and their brain immediately recognizes that they don't have the luxury of letting the ball go to the back wall. It's not going to come off the back wall. Because it's bouncing so far up in the court, they have to cut it off in the middle of the court. So by default, if you hit a ball low and hard that bounces within the service box, especially the front of the service box, or the second bounce is near the back of the service box, you're forcing your opponent to cut the ball off early. That has the domino effect of giving you less time to actually recover to the tee. So put this into perspective. Most people end up hitting this ball low and hard when they're under pressure, and when they do that, it takes its first bounce too short in the court, so too far up in the court, again in the no man's land band, and by doing that, you're forcing your opponent to take it early. Now when you're under pressure, the goal is obviously to give yourself time by trying to hit high. If you hit low and hard, which is the default pattern, you do not give yourself time. You force your opponent to hit the ball early, thus either losing the rally or forcing yourself into a diagonal or something along those lines. Now, there is an important relationship between height on the front wall, so how high you hit the ball on the front wall, how hard you hit it, and how deep it comes. And I'm going to show you some of that with a little cool example with Coll and Mostafa Asal. And the thing that you've probably experienced and recognized is the first person who hits the ball deeper, so first bounce, let's say past the service box or near the back of the service box with a little bit of height, regains position on the tee. The other person is forced into the back of the court, and now you have brought some control and structure back into the game. What you'll also find is that the pros, they do end up hitting into no man's land, hence I said you'll feel good about yourself when you see the clip in a minute, but the pros often regain their length pretty swiftly, and they take advantage of the other person's short length. Interestingly enough, in this video, they did not do that, but this is a rare occurrence, and hence all the more reason to feel good about yourself. So let's check out the video. So the clip is pretty short, so get ready, and here we go. And here it begins. So there were actually 4 shots that landed in no man's land, which is pretty incredible for guys of this level. And we're going to see it in slow motion now. I'm going to show you some of the correlations between where you hit the ball and where it ends up. So let's check this out. Here we go in slow-mo. So the first one, Coll's hitting under not insane pressure, but there's pressure. He doesn't have a full swing. he hits the ball relatively low on the front wall, and look at the first bounce. Here's no man's land, because Asal, if he doesn't cut the ball off over here, this ball is going to die somewhere around here, so he has no choice. Coll didn't hit the ball from too far back in the court, so he's still pretty comfortable on the tee. Now we're going to see Asal hits the ball even lower, and it bounces even shorter. And in this case, Coll could theoretically hit a quick 2-wall boast if he was in position, and Asal is stuck behind him. So here's an opportunity where an opponent could take advantage of a shorter ball. Coll looks to lift a little bit again, hits the same spot on the front wall, and essentially the same second bounce as well, again in no man's land. What does Asal do? He tees up, hits the ball a little bit harder. So this is where the relationship gets interesting. It's the same height as where Coll hit the ball, but Asal's ball lands a little bit further back, but still in no man's land. And then Coll finally puts a little reset by aiming just above the service line and getting the ball to bounce just behind the service box. And now he's settled on the tee, and Asal is hitting from behind him. So I hope through these lines you can kind of see the yellow line on the front wall is where the ball bounced. The red line is where Asal hit it lower and harder and equally as hard approximately to Coll, so it bounced even shorter. And then he hit it kind of similar height to these lines, but then it got further because he just put more pace into it. But you see, if you hit this low, even if you put pace, and Asal has a tremendous amount of pace and power, the ball still stays fairly short. So some things to consider. Now, you'll see in a minute over here that if the ball clips the sidewall early on, even if you're trying to reset it, it stops. And that's what happened to Coll at the end over here. So you see Coll's lift there catches a sidewall pretty early, and as a result bounces over here, so it slows down. If that did not catch the sidewall early, there's a chance that it would have made it all the way to the back, and then Asal would be hitting out of the back court, which would give Coll even more time and potentially put Asal under some pressure. Hitting low and hard can actually be effective as well if your opponent is not on the same side. So when you start getting into this same side, in this example, forehand bashing to try to get the ball past the other guy or to try to hit winners, it's not really effective. If, let's say, Asal was hitting on the forehand and Coll was somewhere on the backhand side, by hitting that low hard ball, it would actually be effective, because now you're taking time away from Coll, and Coll would, if Asal hit a deep drive when Coll is somewhere in the front left, for example, Coll has time to try to go do the full diagonal and go get that ball, and Asal has to hit the perfect fading length in the back court. If Asal hits that slightly shorter kill, because it's now coming faster, Coll has to get to the ball quicker. If it's relatively tight to the side wall and taking its second bounce by the service box, it's actually a very effective kill shot. So the tactical context and situational awareness is extremely important to know when you should hit the ball low and hard. And like I already demonstrated, point number 3, simply hitting slightly softer and higher creates time, and it allows you to reestablish yourself on the tee. So how can you apply this to your game? Step 1, in my opinion, is to understand and then develop the skills of awareness of your tactical context, and then developing the skill to select the appropriate shot. So in the example we shared with Coll and Asal, they both didn't immediately recognize that by hitting low and hard, it's actually not going to win me the point. Coll recognized that he needed to just reset the ball eventually, and then he did. If, on the other hand, like I shared the example earlier, if, let's say, Asal is on the left front part of the court and Coll is in the mid court and he hits a kill shot similar to what the guys were doing, but the ball bounces second bounce near the short line or the start of the service box, that could be a very effective ball as long as Coll gets out of the way. Now, that's awareness of tactical context, and then you're choosing the appropriate shot. Just remember, as a default, if you're not sure of the shot and you're not comfortable hitting some kind of attack, always reset it down the line. Don't do something when you're not balanced, not in the right position, not confident, because that's likely going to lead to some hesitation. It's going to lead to you mishitting the ball a little bit, hitting the tin, opening up the court, and suddenly giving your opponent the advantage. The second point here is just aim higher on the front wall. You have to, however, assess certain technical aspects. So some people will aim higher on the front wall, but they'll do it with this little flick. Well, if you do a little flick, unless you're under tremendous pressure in the back of the court, you want to have a little bit more of a follow through so you can actually guide the ball. If you're used to hitting with a closed racket face, it's almost impossible to hit high on the front wall. It is impossible because the ball is going down when you hit with a closed racket face. So you have to be aware of some of these sorts of things. You don't want to start with a high swing here, because especially if you're under pressure, because the first thing you have to do is drop your racket to then get under the ball and hit up, and this process now suddenly gives you less time and the ball might get past you. If you're under pressure, you might miss it entirely. So there are lots of little technical subtleties that go into it, and I'm hoping this gives you some flavor. And the final thing is recognizing that hitting low and hard will likely not solve your problem. Chances are you're not going to catch your opponent snoozing. And the automatic default one is when someone's under pressure, you see this all the time. I used to do this all the time. You go into the front right corner, assuming you're a forehand, you're a righty, and that's your forehand, and you're under pressure and you're stretched out and you just smash across court. Well, more often than not, that does not win you points, especially as you move higher up in levels. All it does is it allows your opponent to get on the ball quicker. It gives you less time to recover to the tee, and now you're doing more work, physically working harder, mentally feeling more stress, and it's just this negative domino cycle from there. For all of you enthusiasts and keeners out there, if you find my videos extremely helpful, which I hope you do, if you want direction and guidance directly from me and you want to work with me one-on-one, if you want to break out of a plateau that you're stuck in, and you're ready to put in consistent effort, and you appreciate the quality and effectiveness of premium services, please send me an email at ahad@arperformance.com. Let's chat. Let's see if there's synergy between us. Let's see how I can help you, and let's get cracking. As always, if you enjoy these videos, please give them the thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Share it with someone who you think would benefit from it, and definitely leave a comment. Your feedback, the stories you share about applying some of these, the lessons that I share, it gives me a lot of motivation and it brings some joy. So I would love to hear from you. If you have questions, put them in the comments. I respond to every comment personally. Folks, take care. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.